Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of the Shed Interview podcast. My name is Gareth McCullough.
And I'm Ally Mackenzie.
And unfortunately this week you're stuck with us. We record this the day after our Bet McLean League Cup defeat to Warrenpoint Town here at the showgrounds, and quite frankly we have other stuff to do later on this week, so this is the only time we could get it in, and we decided to give the players off, and quite frankly as well we seem to have put a curse on them, so which we'll explain later on in the episode. So we'll run through the 3 games that have been played since the last episode, which were, as the aforementioned Warrenpoint defeat last night in the League Cup, the defeat to Ballinamallard here at the showgrounds in the league, and 10 days ago the away win at Queen's. So we'll work backwards and start with the most recent one. Warrenpoint last night, as one of our fellow fans, and I do believe a Shed podcast viewer, mentioned to me after the game, and one thing I completely agree with, it was probably a good defeat, as good a defeat as you can have, because you're bouncing back from the Ballinamallard defeat on Saturday, albeit yes, of course we lost last night to Warrenpoint, but there are a lot of positives to take from it. Mm-hmm. You know, players got game time on the pitch that maybe haven't got a lot of minutes in recent times. We were able to give full debuts to Nell Brady in goals, only 19, Brian Healy, who's only 17 and scored after less than a minute and a half. Philly Donnelly was superb when he came on, his first appearance of the season. We were able to rest Dingo, we were able to bring Thomas Lockard off, we were able to rest Samuel McElveen. It was probably the only thing was just not being clinical enough up front, but a really good performance and a lot of positives to take from it. Yeah,
and for the first time I think in a long time going into a Warrenpoint game, I felt quite confident. Even though after Saturday we had no reason to be confident really after how flat that performance
was. Ally Mackenzie, the most optimistic person in the world after a 3-0 defeat, he was confident playing Premiership opponents.
I think there were reasons to be confident. Coming into it, we have won 6 out of the 7 games, so I felt good enough, and I thought if we could find the level of performance that we needed, we'd do all right. And we started like a whirlwind with Brian scoring so early. Was it the second minute? 1 minute,
precisely 1 minute and 21 seconds.
So young Brian Healy gets his first goal for the club, which almost happened a few weeks ago when he hit the post down here.
Yeah.
So I was delighted when that happened, and then I just felt like after a few minutes I was like, is this actually happening here? Are we playing this well after Saturday? And James Thielen went through, nearly made it 2-0. Unfortunately he missed. Warrenpoint came back in the game kind of just before the half time. And they looked quite strong closing out that half, but I felt like had James have scored, I feel they would have opened up a little bit more, and we might have gone 3 up. I think it was that kind of game. Unfortunately their kind of physicality and maybe just that experience against our younger lads just proved it in the end, but every reason to be proud of last night and the performance.
Yeah, I mean it's important to sort of recognise that we're a big enough club in our opinion anyway, that we're not going in for a moral victory and hey, we played well, but you still lost the game. But as I said, it feels better because it was such an improved performance from the previous Saturday. And it said we had a lot of excitement in terms of players, it's like getting game time on the pitch and performing really well that we hadn't seen a lot of this season, or hadn't seen anything of this season. In fact, Darren reverted back to the 3-5-2 formation for most of the game, and I think midway through the second half he went into 4-4-2, but it was different from the Ballinamallard game where we were 4-4-2 from the outset, and 4-3-3, apologies, from the outset, and it just didn't suit us. We didn't seem to have the sort of energy in midfield that we're maybe used to.
Yeah.
But that was back last night, and I think the only real difference was, you touched on it there, probably, I wouldn't necessarily say experience, but a little bit of ruthlessness up front. James...
Just that quality as well.
Yeah. James misses that chance, and it's not, he had another super game and looked really, really lively, and to be quite frankly, I've used that 3 times already. He scared the shit out of their defenders a lot of the time, but just with pace, and didn't matter how many times he could kick, he got up and he get on with it, and he's absolutely fearless.
And it proves it in the fact that he missed that quite early on. You could put your head down, but he spent the entire game going straight at them again. That was amazing. Such confidence for such a young fella.
And even touching on the goal, Brian Healy sort of holds off a much more experienced centre back and lobs the keeper from the edge of the box, with a cracking finish, and you're going, okay, something about him. You have, this is a touch on Philip Donnelly, who hasn't been with us this season. He was was absolutely superb and my man of the match. In the sort of 50 minutes he was on the pitch, including extra time. Didn't seem to tire either, which was positive. Another huge positive, which was completely unexpected, was the introduction of Jake Gorman, Desi Gorman's son,
the Dundalk Hawks son.
Yeah, everybody and would have worn that shirt. The only 18-year-old hit the post with a wonderful effort that Conor Mitchell beating all ends up, and looked good aside from that, and learned from the experience of coming on probably around the same time as Dingo, and you could hear Dingo sort of telling them when to press, telling them when to drop off, telling them help them out with runs and things like that. And that's invaluable to even build up relationships like that as a strike partnership. So the strike partnership we started with, Brian Healy and John McGovern, combined age of 35, which I think is just younger than our captain Mark Hughes. Those two, Jake Gorman, James Thielen and Niall Brady, I think have a combined age of 90. That's 5 players, a combined age of 90, and it bodes well for the future. So many positives. Now if you were looking at certain social media accounts, looking at you, Jack Gilson, I think from Warrenpoint Town, saying Warrenpoint had a fully deserved 2-1 win, which was a fantastic bit of fishing. Of course I bet just didn't want to let you down.
Jack was actually watching the snooker at the time on his phone. He was sitting up the stand, he wasn't even watching the football.
And if this wasn't you tweeting, Jack, then we humbly apologise, but whoever it is, please raise your head above the parapet, because it was quite amusing. Even quite a number of the Warrenpoint officials said afterwards, who the hell's tweeting that, but an excellent bit of, I think they call it in the game, shithousery. But fair play to Warrenpoint, they're in the next round. We're out, but I think we've a lot more to be positive about than probably Warrenpoint have. And Barry Gray, to be fair, said those exact words to me in a conversation after the game. So disappointing defeat.
Yeah,
excellent performance.
I suppose the only other negative was, apart from the result, was being dragged into extra time, and that extra 30 minutes in the players when it's been quite a busy period with 3 games in 10 days. So that was the only thing really. I was thinking we could do without this. The League Cup, we're never going to win it, or it would take something monumental for us to win it. And before looking at it, I was like, I would much rather have won on Saturday against the Mallards than Tuesday night.
Yeah.
But when a local derby gets nearer, you're like, okay, we'll want to win this.
Yeah, of course.
But as I said, just going into extra time was just a little bit of a downside, a bit of a dampener going into Saturday's game away to Ballyclare.
Yeah, I mean it was. Although I tend to, ironically, after criticising you for being overly positive, I do think we probably, because you got like Philip Donnelly more game time, you got Jake Gorman plenty of game time, Niall Brady got 120 minutes, things like that. I think probably might bode well. We didn't get any extra injuries, which was key, because we had so many injuries recently. But that was a positive defeat, if there can be such a thing. Comparison to the previous Saturday, home to Ballinamallard, we're coming off the back of 6 league wins in a row, 5 points clear, everything's sunshine and rainbows,
sky high after the week before.
Absolutely amazing. Life is good. Come 4:45 last Saturday, I'll be quite frank, it was an absolute shit show. And I know I've used that word 3 times. I apologise for anybody who's offended, but it's generally as bad a day that I can remember in terms of football for quite a while. And ironically, probably our last home league game before this season was, I think, Loughgall.
Yeah.
It was 3-0 or 3-1.
3-0.
And it was an equally bad performance. Just didn't happen. Just everything from the word go just didn't feel right. Yeah,
it was completely flat, which was weird, considering we hadn't played well the week before and come away with a 2-0 win and thought, you know what, we escaped one there, we need to learn from that. It looks like we didn't learn from it, and it bled into this performance where we just couldn't get going at all. It just looked like anything we tried, the Mallards just looked too good for. Now I have to say, fair play to them, they were well deserved of their win.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
They were set up so well, they kind of knew exactly where to pinpoint, and they did it brilliantly. And I think in the second half, did we even have a shot on target?
I don't think so, no.
It came down, it's bad when we don't have a shot on target after the goals were scored. It highlights just how bad we were, all over the park, but this is football, and this is this league, and it's to be expected. We did say a couple of weeks ago that it would be a difficult game. It's always tight games against the Mallards. Going down there a few seasons ago, then coming down here, it's always difficult. I just didn't expect us to lose 3-0, and it could have been more if Stephen Maguire wasn't on form.
Yeah, Stevie's been super this season, and to be quite honest, he probably saved it from being 5, 6, 7. And let's be honest again. I don't think anybody could have argued had it been 5, 6 or 7, because we were that poor, and they were just Ballinamallard were so far superior, and you have to give them an awful lot of credit. Ian McConkey's a very, very astute manager. There's some Premiership experience in there. There's Richard Clark, who's a legend down this club, just pulling the strings in the middle of the pitch. If he's allowed the time and space to do that, he will absolutely tear you apart, and that's exactly what he did. The thing that Darren touched on in the media after the game was he knew that they were going to be dangerous from set pieces, and he said he specifically told players he's trying not to give free kicks in in dangerous positions, and we give free kick after free kick after free kick away in bad positions. They scored all their goals from free kicks one way or another, and from that aspect that was disappointing, because we shouldn't be conceding from set pieces are avoidable. Because in my opinion anyway, set pieces isn't anything to do with necessarily technical ability. Somebody can deliver a brilliant ball in, somebody can be a good header of the ball, but it's not somebody where they have to jink past 4 players and stick in the top corner from 25 yards. They're defendable, they're easily avoidable, conceding goals from set pieces. So that was disappointing, particularly if, as Darren says, he highlighted it before the game. This is what we can't do, and we went and did exactly that.
Well, isn't it funny? I don't know if you experienced this, but it's funny just how much your mood changes between winning 6 in a row and coming back from Queen's, and I stayed out all night. I was just loving life. I had a great time, but and then for the rest of the week I felt great. I was like, what a result that was! So good, an away game that was class. And then after losing to Ballinamallard, thankfully we didn't have too long to wait to the point game. But for Saturday night and Sunday and Monday, I was just like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to lose again.
Yeah.
But not just lose, but to lose that way.
Lose comfortably.
Lose comfortably and just kind of feel like shite for a few days. But maybe it's just a wake up that we needed. And obviously we did bounce back last night well, and we look good. But you're not going to go unbeaten in this league. And Darren actually said it in the paper during the week. In your coverage, so plug the reporter there. But he had said you're not going to go unbeaten in this league, and it's going to come eventually. Maybe it's good that we lost when we did, because our 6 wins. Okay, we had Ards, who maybe would be that kind of the 4 that we would have highlighted at the start of the season, but we still are yet to play Loughall. We still hadn't played Mallards at that point, and we still have to play Anna United. So maybe I was getting carried away maybe a wee bit, but that just refocuses you, doesn't it? It lets you know that tough games are coming and we need to be prepared.
Yeah, it just shows you can't take anything for granted. I mean, the players, nobody goes out, firm opinion, nobody goes out to play poorly. People just have off days, and there are days where everybody pretty much is an off day, and that's players, management, coaches, that's supporters as well. The atmosphere was flat as well, and that permeates through to the players. So I mean, there's so many things that can be the perfect storm where it can just end up being a disaster. But then we put it in context. Talking to Darren after the Ballinamallard game, and you're saying, well, let's pause this a second and realise, well, we're still 2 points clear here. If you'd have said in the first 7 games, would you have 6 wins and 1 defeat, you would have gone, thanks very much, that would be lovely.
Absolutely.
So it's important to sort of just maybe rein it in a bit. It is the fickle nature of being a football fan. 1 second you're run saying we're going to walk the league, and then it's all doom and gloom and you're miserable for the next couple of days. And we were talking to each other over the weekend, and we were both down in the dumps, and I guarantee you we weren't the only Newry fans. So I think last night against Warrenpoint redeemed it a little bit. I was a bit nervous, to be quite honest, going into the game, because I thought, well, okay, yes, we have now lost 2 games in a row, but it didn't want us to go out and put in the same level of performance we did on Saturday and end up getting hammered, and especially against your local rivals. But that didn't happen. They redeemed themselves. So if we move on to happier times,
so the best away game in years.
The best away game in years were pitch invasions, carryouts.
The drum made a return as well.
The drum made a return badly. One of the best saves or sort of pieces of goalkeeping you're likely to see. 2 fantastic bits of skill for the 2 goals. 2-0 win against Queen's.
So all sponsored by Smithwick's as well.
Yeah, if you can run us through, there could be 2 very different versions of this game. One was sober, one was tipsy.
Well, you have to work at games, I don't.
Well, yeah, and people still criticise me. You go, you're not working. So I don't know. I can't win.
Yeah.
But so run us through your experience of the Queen's game at the Dub.
Got off the bus. McGovern scored. Went to the toilet at half time. Came out. Maguire saved. Lawless scored on the pitch.
That's all you can remember of the game.
Yeah, and then back to the brass monkey. But that's all you need to know, isn't it?
Well, this is very true.
And the highlight showed that.
If I wrote that for a match report, though, I think I'd probably get fired. But yeah, I mean, you pretty much summed up all the key moments. It was one of those games, and we probably, in hindsight, it was quite not a flat performance. It was a dogged performance. It wasn't as fluid or as free flowing as we have been this season, which understandably you're going to get that in certain games through changing players getting injured, and we get a lot of injuries that day.
Yeah, it was costly.
I missed obviously Decky Carville's suspension, which you only got that morning. So there's a lot of things that contain with Thomas Lockhart, our Championship Player of the Month, who we forgot to congratulate on last podcast.
And he won a holiday to Spain for that, didn't he?
Yeah, it was fantastic that the Northern Ireland Football Writers now put up a week in Tenerife when you win Championship Player of the Month, so I'm sure it'll drive everybody on. I hope Tommy did say to me that he was heading away for a week of warm weather training, which was warm weather drinking by the looks of him. But congratulations, Tommy, well deserved. Yep. But we had a lot of things to contend with. That would have been a perfect game for Thomas. This tight pitch where we can burst through tackles and shoot from anywhere. But the positive of it showed we could put a different way of winning. But there were telltale signs that if we had come up against a more clinical team, a bit more ruthless up front, that we could have been caught, as is what happened the next week against Ballinamallard. But I mean, the key instance, Dingo's bit of skill for John's opening goal, a drag back and then flick in between two defenders before cross, and then crack and finish. Stevie Lawless for his goal, drags his foot over the ball and nutmegs the keeper, in a really compact sort of space. But the key moment of the whole, and could end up being a key moment for the entire season, we don't know. It was literally about 20-30 seconds, if even, before Stevie's winning goal, 90th minute, 91st minute, ball's bobbling about our 6-yard box. Stevie Maguire is, I don't know, he's sort of on the ground, he throws a leg at it, throws an arm at it.
It's a good job he's 7'3", isn't it?
Yeah, he manages to scramble it clear. Those octopus arms and legs were going all over the place, but we go straight up the pitch and scored. As Darren said afterwards, and I was down that end of the pitch at the time, I was sort of looking at it going, you were expecting the ball to hit the back of the net, and somehow it stayed out, and we went straight up and capitalised. So it was amazing. Well, before we touch on the celebration, we'll touch on your view of Stevie's save.
Exactly what you said. All of the above. Standing where I was, the Dub's got a great view, I think, and I just had the perfect view of Stevie, and he hit the ground. I was like, oh no, here we go. Last kick of the game, more or less, this is going to happen. And he somehow pulled off this wonder save and then hoofed the ball, and then it got launched upfield. But Stevie is a fan favourite down here.
Yeah,
and everybody loves him because he's passionate about it, but he gives everything. And it's a couple of weeks ago we could see the goals. Sorry, last Saturday we could see the goals against Ballinamallard. He wasn't really to blame for those goals, and he always gives everything. I was just delighted for him that he's back, and he was managed to pull off a massive save like that and have such a big part in us going down to secure the win.
Yeah, and so I've obviously fallen off on that. Stevie Lawless goes up the field and scores the winner and takes it really well. And you've been telling me repeatedly since that you're pretty much taking Prophet Ally, we're going to call him now. He's taking credit for Stevie's resurgence and his brilliant goal. Hence why he ran directly over to you, and you ran directly over the fence and onto the side of the pitch to celebrate with him.
Yeah, it was a real romantic moment, wasn't it?
Romantic is probably not the word. I mean, we're going to have to put an 18 certificate in this because it's good.
No, do you know what? I'm a big fan of Stevie Lawless. I think he's a great player, and for whatever reason, he just hasn't really had that chance this season. And it was great to see him come off the bench and basically win the game for us at the very end, at the death. And I'd said to him a few weeks ago, you look a bit despondent after not maybe getting on, and he's one of the boys that drives up from that. So I just said, look, your time's going to come. Everybody's going to be needed at some point this season, and he scored. And I was just delighted for him. Now, I did get carried away. I kind of ran down the steps at the Dub and ended up hopping the fence and hugging him. But I think all of the fans felt it was just such a sense of relief and joy that we actually won that game, because we knew we weren't playing well. And we struggled, and one thing that we all said in the stands was like, we need to make some noise for the last 15-20 minutes here, just to carry us over that line. So for, you know, I think the fans felt like they played their part that day as well. And the celebrations, I haven't seen anything like it. Like, those celebrations are what happens, you know, 2 weeks from the end of the season, when you've secured a playoff. For us, I think we knew that was a massive 3 points, and as it turned out, Ards dropped points that day. Loughgall, I think, dropped points as well. We ended up being 5 points clear coming down the road in the bus, and it was just like, that was huge. You know, that was one of those pivotal moments, I think, in the season, which, you know, we can put back to Stephen Maguire's save. Hopefully, when we're looking back at the end of the season, be like, that's one of the moments. There's 2 points that we've actually rescued there that could make the difference. Yeah, absolutely. So just before we finish off, upcoming this weekend, away to Ballyclare. Now, you're definitely not in attendance because you're off to... where are you off to? Go on, explain to the viewers. I'm off to London on my honeymoon. So I booked in Craven Cottage. I'm going to go and see Fulham because I couldn't get tickets to the Chelsea Spurs game. Huge Michael Jackson fan. Yeah. I love Tony Khan from AEW Wrestling, so I'm going to go and see his dad's club. But we're going to go to Craven Cottage and watch the game there. I couldn't get tickets to Chelsea Spurs. And, you know, the whole thing with Fulham, like, it's not like a heated rivalry, and I've always wanted to go to Craven Cottage, so I'm going to go down there and see them. I'm sure Ali's good lady wife, Louise, if you're watching this, just absolutely delighted with that prospect. And we're going to see WWE on Monday night as well. Wow, what a romantic. But yeah, hopefully I'll make it, but I'm not sure at the minute. Other professional obligations may get in the way of that. But Ballyclare is a game that, again, we want to come out with cliches, but it's one of those ones where we've never got it easy there. I don't remember us ever, you know, thumping them at Dixon Park. And I don't remember ever playing them not at Christmas. It's always freezing cold when we go down there. So we should have a bit of daylight, hopefully, you know, even the nights are closing in by, as I say. You know, so we're obviously coming into sort of the latter part of September now. It feels like the season's been going for a long time, and it hasn't. We're only coming into our eighth league game of the season. You've got Sammy McAveen come back to play against his former club. Mark Kelly is hoping to be fit and could be back to again another one of his former clubs, and he's already scored against Ards, one of his most recent, probably out of the championship clubs that he's played for. It's a big game, and at the risk of feeling the wrath of the Ballyclare players, the way we did with the Dergview players, was we criticised their pitch, even though their pitch is now fantastic at Dergview. Ballyclare's pitch and floodlights have never been great, to be quite honest. I got grief last year for tweeting next year at Christmas, hopefully Santa brings Ballyclare some new floodlights. I mean, I got dirt from Justin Wallace, who's a Ballyclare fan. Met him in Baku at the Northern Ireland game, but it's all good Spurs, like, but they're great. I'm really missing that. I love going down to Dixon Park. It's a great day out. It's always a good away trip. There's a good bar across the road from the ground, and the bar or the ground right in the centre of the town. I do remember, just for a little bit piece of trivia, in the 98 season, I think, when we were playing at the same level, essentially Division 1, it would have been the championship. It was us and Ballyclare vying for the title, and I think it was Alan Campbell, if I remember correctly, who was the Ballyclare manager at the time, saying something along the lines of, Newry don't deserve to go up to the top flight, their ground isn't in the centre of the town. Was that his Kevin Keegan moment? So I think so. It was. I remember being blazing across the Sunday Life, if I remember correctly, and it was like, very few grounds are in the centre of the town. Let's be quite honest. Their ground is literally in the centre of Ballyclare. You know, if I would love to have a ground, you know, sort of where Newry Sports Centre is, but you know, I'm very happy where the ground is here at the Greenbank Industrial Estate. But it's going to be a tough one. I've said to you off air that I would be not happy with the draw, but if you said, you know, well, would you take a draw there, I wouldn't be averse to accepting that. I mean, I think you think a wee bit differently, maybe. Yeah, I think it's important to go down there and get a win, because we've now had 2 defeats back to back, and we can take whatever positives we want from last night's game against the Point, but it was a defeat at the end of the day, and we're out of the cup. You don't want it to go to 3 games without a win after winning 6 in a row, because it's kind of like, well, you know, where's the sense? What's the point of winning your 6 games if you can't follow that up? So I think we need 3 points. I think we're more than capable of getting 3 points down there as well. And if we have a performance like we had last night, then there's no reason why we can't. And hopefully, you know, last night was an opportunity for those young fellas, but I wouldn't be against any of them starting at the weekend, because they proved that they're at the level and they're good enough. And Brian Healy took his opportunity so early on and played well. So who knows? I'm not going to do actual predictions anymore though, because we're setting myself up for a fall here. I'm giving people an awful lot of ammunition.
Well, along with that, we probably maybe worked out, we're sort of saying we don't have a player guest on this week because, we just sort of haven't had the time, and you were giving the players a day off. In theory, we're thinking it's going to be the Shed NV podcast curse, because we had Dingo on and we were extolling his virtues in front of goal and how many goals he scored, and I'm not convinced that I can't remember whether he's scored since, but they certainly dried up a wee bit. And then we had Engine on a couple of weeks ago, and playing fantastic, get the best defensive record in the league, and we've conceded 6 goals in the last 3 games. So I think we might sort of say, if anybody's got a cat or something that wants to come on, that doesn't have an influence on the actual proceedings of games, then that would be great. But yeah, well, hopefully the Shed NV podcast curse, if there is such a thing, lifts very soon for the next episode. But that wraps us up for this week.
Yeah.
We'll be back in 2 weeks where we talk about the Ballyclare game, whether we're at it or not, and the Dundalk game, and hopefully we'll be able to get a guest on for another 2-parter. But thanks very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Shed NV podcast page, and on social media on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we'll see you all very soon.